Certainly one topic the candidates spent a good deal of time on last night. Mark Leibovich, the chief national correspondent for the New York Times Magazine, good enough to join us now from Washington. And Mark, on the fact checks then that we just heard from Major with regard to both candidates, anything to you that's decidedly problematic for the campaign today?
Well, I mean, the Trump campaign, I think the whole kind of collage. I mean, I do think that if you watched the performance last night, I think Pence came off as a more commanding figure. I think, he was less, I think he inhabited the role better. However, what's most damaging is sort of the aftermath, and I think that report is emblematic of this, which is you're going to have video clip after video clip juxtaposing the denials that Pence made after Kane's accusations with the actual video of Trump saying this. I mean, it's really kind of funny to hear Kane reciting actual things that Trump has said, usually on tape, and usually insults, and then have Pence say, "Wow, that's very insulting." I mean, it's just the through the looking glass aspect of this can get a little much. So I do think that, in the moment, I think Pence performed well, perhaps better. I think as this day kind of goes off, and I think as people talk about this, there's going to be a lot of accompanying video that's problematic for Trump.
And yet, Mark, the aftermath you mentioned today, the second presidential debate does loom come Sunday. So this will only have but a day or two really to promote through a news cycle. Wasn't the performance last night, I mean, you mentioned the performance aspect of it, and with regard to Senator Kane and really a constant interruption, if you look, for instance, at the echo chamber of social media, it did seem that perhaps in the short term, whatever challenges he made to Governor Pence were undone by the way he made them.
Yeah, I think that, look, it was sort of a herky-jerky sort of performance by Kane. I think he seemed a little amped up. I think he could have, interrupted less. I think clearly that was a bit of a bad look for people if you look at the focus groups afterwards and so forth. I mean, it's also actually what Donald Trump did in the first debate. But either way, I mean, I think if you look at the performance at face value, I think Trump probably performed better. But again, I think Kane scored some very, very important points that will be borne out in video. But you're right. I mean, this is a vice presidential debate. The specter of these two candidates at the top of the ticket is so big. The race is so much about them. And I think people will probably turn their attention to Sunday by the end of today at the earliest or the latest.
With regard to perhaps calming a jittery GOP base, what impact do you think did Governor Pence's performance have, even as it compares to his own running mates?
Well, I mean, there was, I don't know. I don't know if nerves were calmed specifically, but I think clearly, I think he was seen as probably the winner of that debate by a lot of people. I think it might serve to slow kind of the narrative of bad news since Trump's first debate performance, and it's just been one thing after another. The perception that he's in a spiral. At the same time, I mean, Trump has not proven that coachable. I mean, you could argue that Pence's performance could provide an object lesson for the kinds of things Trump might think about doing on Sunday. And just sort of remaining calm, not interrupting, just sort of a much more commanding traditional politician presence. But again, I mean, Trump is not a traditional politician. He's never pretended to be. And I have no confidence that he would sort of look at anything Mike Pence did and sort of take it as a template to how to be on Sunday. So, we'll see. It's like the beauty of Trump is also the peril of Trump, which is that he's wholly unpredictable.
I was also struck in the immediate aftermath. Pollster Frank Luntz was with 28 uncommitted voters in Ohio watching this, and he did a focus group throughout. In the immediate aftermath, in their discussion, he asked them, and I should note that only one of these 28 entering last night thought that Donald Trump had gotten the better of Hillary Clinton in the first presidential debate. He asked them, though, what was the more important issue? Hillary Clinton's email scandal or the continuing scandal with regard to Donald Trump's tax returns and the release of said returns. Of the 23 in that room, only 3 thought that the tax returns were more important than the emails. What does that tell you? Again, I realize it's 28 people, it's a slice, but what would that suggest to you about where we are with regard to the two real big things that seem to be dogging the candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are some pretty telling numbers. I mean, I think the Clinton campaign clearly thinks that they have a winning issue with this tax returns thing, and also with our story last week on, with the 1995 tax returns that showed him, reporting a loss of nearly $1 billion and presumably or perhaps not paying any taxes on federal taxes going forward. I mean, I think if you look at those numbers, that would suggest that perhaps it's an abstraction, and maybe the email issue was far more real to people. Now, granted, the email issue has been around for a long time. It's something that the Clintons or Hillary Clinton has really failed to put to bed, to answer definitively, to admit error on until recently. So, I mean, there's been sort of some lingering and sort of some building resentment around that. But still, I think it's quite telling. And I think, I think if in so much as you can trust, a small sample like that, I think the Clinton campaign might reevaluate how much to emphasize the tax issue.
Again, we all, of course, are looking ahead to Sunday night, part 2 of the presidential debate. Mark Leibovich, as always, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Josh.